Democratic Congressmember Kamlager Dove, who represents California's 37th district right here in the LA metro area and is a member of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. Congressmember, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So the Iran strikes that we're seeing now in the last few hours, your reaction to that and sort of the status of where we at in terms of this memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, where we at? The American people are asking that same question $100 and something billion later. The reason why you're seeing all this back and forth, deal, no deal, is because we really don't have a deal. I was on the phone actually with Marco Rubio a week or so ago, and we were asking him these very questions. What is the end game? Why are Americans sacrificing at the pump and at the grocery store for this war of choice? What is going on? And the secretary said something very interesting. He said, you know, there's a very distinct difference between the nuclear deal, Obama's deal, the JCPOA, and this MOU. He said that nuclear deal was law. It was legally binding. It had criteria, expectations, milestones, etc. This MOU is just a piece of paper that people signed saying we're going to continue to talk about talking. It is not a real deal. And that is why you are not seeing an end to this war.
So what is the end? What would you like to see happen? I know you were frustrated with how we got to this point now, but we're here now. So what do we do now?
Well, we need to get some folks who know how to negotiate to come to the table and sit down and negotiate with Iran so that we can get our service members out, so that we can have the Strait of Hormuz open permanently. We can have a ceasefire. That's what we need to be talking about, and we need to have all of the partners from around the Middle East at the table to ensure that. You know, what people also forget is it took years for that nuclear deal, the JCPOA, to be written and agreed to.
Yep.
I don't know why Trump thinks in 60 days or 80 days or whatever, they're going to have something comparable.
Trump had suggested that he would get a deal on Russia-Ukraine war in one day when he came back. That has not happened yet. He's now at the NATO conference. That is very much top of mind. We have seen Russian strikes in the last few hours. What's the end game there?
Okay. So I will say before we left, Congress actually voted on a bipartisan bill that would support additional funding to Ukraine and impose greater sanctions on Russia. NATO, this summit, is where allies come together to talk about national security and diplomacy and to find agreement. I have to tell you, our NATO partners do not believe that we are a predictable, reliable partner.
You've heard that from them?
I just came back from Brussels with a congressional delegation. We met with European counterparts, and that's what they told us. We were there to talk about climate, to say don't count us out. And they are saying, well, you pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. You're threatening to withdraw from NATO. You're still saber-rattling on conquering Greenland. You have these arbitrary tariffs. Anthropic, we don't know what you're doing with intelligence or with chips. You are not a reliable partner anymore. And that's very sobering, Alex.
And what'd you say to them?
We said, Congress is as important as the administration. This administration is not going to be here forever.
You think that's really true, based off of the way things are going right now?
Well, he wants to change the game, but when you do have bipartisan support on things like housing, on things like supporting Ukraine, you do find a little Republican muscle. And we did say, we're in a bump. We're in a bump in the road right now, but don't count us out. States are stepping in where the federal government is not, and we will be back. And many of them said, please come back after November.
So, well, there seems to be some bipartisan agreement right now that Platner should drop out of the Senate race in Maine, but he's not dropping out. He's lost all of his key endorsers. He's lost the support of the party in Maine. He's lost the support of the National Party, but so far, he's not going anywhere. What do you make of his decision to do that? Why do you think that is?
I don't know why, but he should listen to his heart and his supporters, and he should get out of the race. It is true. The message is very important. We need fighters who are going to fight back against corporate monopolies, who are going to tackle the wealth gap and economic inequality. But the messenger is deeply flawed, and these allegations are credible and they are serious. I do not think we should be asking Maine voters to put their moral compass on the shelf because you have folks that put vibes over vetting. They should have vetted this candidate, and they should have really had a serious conversation about if he was viable to go the distance, and he should drop out.
Do you think your colleagues, some of those including Sanders and Warren and others, you think they made a mistake in not vetting him well?
Yes, I do not think. There was information that was out there. We kept hearing more is going to come. You know, many of us said we have some concerns about this candidate. And are you telling me that this is the only person who can carry the message when there's so many of us who are fighting for the same things? Access to health care, affordable health care, challenging these corporations with the monopolies and the antitrust violations, and making sure that working people are being heard. That is the message. That's the wrong messenger.
And you think people should have spoken up sooner?
Well, I don't know what there was to say, but now that we've got a second woman who's coming out, these allegations are credible. I mean, he certainly deserves due process, but he really should be doing right by Maine voters.
And lastly, just something on the fun side to wrap things up. You have been talking for years about the idea of sports diplomacy. With the Olympics coming to Los Angeles and now the World Cup here in Southern California and around North America as well. Talk about that as a concept and something. I know you were at one of the matches and how important that is.
Well, I certainly have been railing against FIFA because these ticket prices are obscene, and how the treatment of some of the players and teams has not been very sportsman. But the thrill of watching these matches and hoping that young American boys and girls will get into the game of soccer and seeing the diversity on the field and the sportsmanship after some of these teams lose, it's amazing. And that's what sports diplomacy is all about. These are peaceful gatherings where countries are coming together and celebrating the greatness of sport. It, like food, is the thing that you can talk about at a table and you can find commonality out of difference.
It's all about food. And you get to do both at
and
the World Cup.
Both, yeah,
plenty of eating and plenty of
some
drinking.
Chance,
it seems
plenty
like
of drinking, yes.
as well. All right, well, it's great to see you,
You
Congressmember. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. And we can't say go Team USA anymore, but are you rooting for anybody in particular now?
I'm rooting for, Mbappe, Morocco, Norway, all the teams. Great matches.
Yes, exactly. All right, thank you so much.